Welcome again to my class. We all know that research entails heavy and thorough reading of all possible sources relevant to your topic. So as research also requires hard work, patience, determination, perseverance, and resourcefulness on the part of the researcher. But today, my students in reading and writing skills class will let us understand the definition and nature of a thorough research process. So please check this out.
Hi, have you ever wondered on how to write a research paper? Well, you came to the right place. Us, Team Hot Dog, will teach you tips and tricks on how to write a research paper. So, let's get started. Of course, step number one on writing a research paper, of course, you need to plan your research. And I think that is one of the most important factors, because if you don't plan your research, well, basically you are going to have a hard time writing a research paper. Well, according to my research, cited by Neil J. Salkind in 2010, planning research is an applied investigation that uses empirical observations in the development and assessments of plans or planning inquiry. The main purpose for research and planning is to expand on the breadth, depth, and applicability of what the planner knows about a particular topic, to either serve as a foundation or improve the suitability and success of his or her developed plans. So at this point, you are able to access multiple datasets and organize research projects. And you are able to use this mixed method investigative strategy, which is generally standard practice for planning a research. Okay, so now we are going to be going to the three categories of planning a research. So number one is work with a familiar subject. Working with a familiar subject would be very convenient for you as a researcher. You know what your sources are and where to find them. You already have your own insights and assumptions before you can even start your research. Plus, it might even exert much depth if you compare and contrast them with realizations after the research is done. Examples are familiar research subjects. Well, your own family, your peers, your neighborhood, your school, your city, and any place that you probably grew up with. Well, now, the second category of planning your research is try something new that piques your interest. If you want to try researching beyond your comfort, go for what your curiosity leads you to. So, of course, you need to explore your hobbies, your favorite TV shows, movies, cartoons, anime, of course, with what you want to major in to go to the higher institutions of learning, what you want to work on once for you to get a job as a researcher, and probably for your future research projects. Yeah. And the last or the third category of this list is browse through available research materials. Once you have already decided which narrowed down research topic would you like to work on, brainstorm on your available sources. What is the easiest or the most convenient source can you reach to give the amount of time for applying your research? Check your intimate surroundings, local and school libraries, ways to contact experts on your topic, the internet, the newspapers, and magazines. Exhaust every possible means of getting sources, as all these might eventually add more insights and depth to your final research paper. So of course, as what I just stated, that we need to research further, or probably to make sure in order for your research to be fine or to be as perfect as how you want. So those are all of the three categories. Now, as I stated the three categories on what planning research is, now why is this first category important? Well, to top it off, you're able to end your research with the different results, which means that you could probably have a new vision on your new research paper, or probably you can even spice things up a bit, I guess, if that's what you call it. You can be able to improve it. You can be able to see the flaws of your research paper and probably make it even better than what you did or what you've expected. You'll be able to think of an idea that you have never thought of. You can also use this method to for your future research, if you are ever going to use any other future research, and maybe, just maybe, you will be able to improve your true potential in researching. So yeah, I guess that's all for this topic, which is planning your research. Now, next will be my other group mates of Team Hot Dog, which will tell you another tip on how to write your research paper. So this is Ibrahim Jalasdi, and I'll see you all.
Primary sources are immediate first-hand accounts of a topic from people who had direct connection with it. Primary sources can include texts of laws on and other original documents, newspapers reports by reporters who witnesses an event or who quote people who did, speeches, diaries, and interviews, what the people involved said or wrote, original research, data sets, survey data such as census or economic statistics, and lastly, photographs, video, or audio that capture an event. In a study of history, an academic discipline, a primary source, also called the original source, is an artifact, document, diary, manuscript, autobiography, recording, or any other source of information that was created at the time under study. It serves as an original source of information about the topic. The similar definitions can be used in library science and other areas of scholarships, although different fields have somewhat different definitions. In journalism, primary source can be a person with direct knowledge of a situation or a document written by such a person. Primary sources are distinguished from secondary resources, which cite, comment, or build upon primary sources. Generally, accounts written after the fact with the benefit and possible distortions of hindsight are secondary. A secondary source may also be a primary source depending on how it is used. For example, memorial would be considered a primary source in research concerning its author or about their friend characteristics within it. But at the same memorial would be secondary source if they were used to examine the culture which is author lived. Primary and secondary should be understood as relative terms with sources categorized according to specific history, context, and what is being studied. Next, we have the other subject, which I will talk about later. A paraphrase is a statement of being of a text passage using other words. A paraphrase typically explains or clarifies the text that is being paraphrased. For example, the signal was red might be paraphrased as the train was not allowed to pass because the signal was red. A paraphrase is usually introduced with verbum decani, declaratory expression to signal the transition to the paraphrase. A paraphrase does not mean accompany a direct quotation. A paraphrase typically serves to put a source statement to perspective or to clarify the context in which appeared. A paraphrase is typically more detailed in a summary. One should add the source at the end of the sentence. For example, when the light was red, trains could not go. A paraphrase may happen to preserve the essential meaning of the material paraphrased, thus the intentional or otherwise Reinterpretation of source infer a meaning is not explicitly evident in the source itself qualifies as the original research and not as paraphrase. Unlike metapraise, which presents a format equivalent, the source of paraphrase represents a dynamic equivalent thereof, while a metapraise attempts to translate a text literally. A paraphrase conveys the essentials thought expressed in a source text, if necessary, at an expense of literally. For details, see dynamic and formal equivalence.
Finding sources in the library. So while primary sources give you the first-hand data, secondary sources can help you support your research as they provide data that you have been tested. For example, books, theses, dissertation, and articles. 5 categories in getting the sources in the library. The first one is Dewey Decimal System. When searching for a single book inside a huge library, instead of browsing through every single book to check if it is what you're looking for, you could use the DDC or DDS, which stands for Dewey Decimal System. It is a library system used to organize books and other resources materials to keep track of who you borrow and return them to the library. It also helps you narrow down the books to save time and direct you to the area you need to browse through that's related to your research. Next is consult the encyclopedia and disciplinary guide after using DDC. In order to get a good gist of your research topic, it offers books with general information and important details of a given subject and directs you to specialized area of your research topic. Books have been edited and reviewed multiple times before published, so it's highly reputable and credible. Some books are called seminal works, meaning they are somewhat considered classic. However, the most up-to-date sources you can get there are periodicals, newspapers, and magazines with the latest information on certain topics. Number 4. Finding sources through the internet. There might be instances in which books and other printed materials are not enough or unavailable to you. The internet can potentially save you from this problem. Number 5. Using internet sources. After surfing through the World Wide Web entails only action of clicking, it is very convenient and does not consume much time and effort. There is nothing wrong with consuming information from the internet for as long as the website you visit for research are credible and reliable. After finding articles that are potentially relevant to your research, first question the author, their background and expertise. Also question the author's thesis statement and who else cites their works. So there are some ways that you can follow to check if the source you find on the internet are alright. So the first one is view URL, which stands for the Uniform Resource Locator. It is like the address of a web page on the internet. The last part of the URL where you can see the .com, the .org, or .edu is called the top level of domain. Number 2, question the author. Ask necessary questions before citing or disregarding the site, like who is the author, what is her background, what is her expertise, which point of view was used, the first, second, or third, what author's thesis statement for the entire article, who else cites the author in her other work. Number 3, detailed info, accuracy, and grammar. You must also question beyond the author. How much information is laid out in the online article? Is it general as what you have found in the encyclopedias and disciplinary guides, or as detailed as specialized books which you were led from the bibliographies you found. And do not forget the basics on how the author's language and his and her grammar is, if it's acceptable or not. Number 4, timeliness. There are times when online articles have publishing dates, cite sources that have come later to show in your research paper that your sources are relevant and up to date. Thank you.
Hello there, it's me Giorgio, and now I'm going to discuss about bibliography. What is actually a bibliography? Bibliography is a list of works that is used or considered by an author in the preparation of a work. The simple definition of bibliography is that giving a proper credit to the original author of the work. Why is bibliography important? Bibliography is important because, number 1, to acknowledge your sources, that is to verify that your work is completely by your own idea and you're not using somebody's work. Number 2, to mention the original author of his or her work. What does a bibliography contain? A bibliography contains a full name of the author, full title of the material used for the research, name and location of the publisher, the date of when the material is published. What are the common types of bibliographies? There are 3 common types of bibliography. They are analytical bibliography, enumerative bibliography, and annotated bibliography. In analytical bibliography, here it studies the physical characteristics of books and its process of bookmaking. In enumerative bibliography, it lists down the books according to some system or reference plan. Here, the implication is that listing will be short. It usually provides only the author's name, book's title, and date and place of publication. Annotated bibliography. It is a bibliography that gives the summary of each entries. The purpose of annotation is to provide the reader with a summary of the source. Hello there. Now, let us talk and discuss about plagiarism. What is plagiarism? It is an act of stealing someone else's work or idea without crediting the source and pass them off as your own. The reason I've added a link down below the definition is that I want to notify my readers that I got this definition from this source, which is the link, and I can safely say that my definition is free from plagiarism. What are the types of plagiarism? We have the verbatim plagiarism, mosaic plagiarism, paraphrasing plagiarism, and global plagiarism. Verbatim plagiarism. It is a type of plagiarism that involves copy and pasting of material without giving a credit to the author. Mosaic plagiarism. It is a type of plagiarism that involves copy and pasting of a material from different sources and putting them together without giving a proper credit to the respective authors. Paraphrasing plagiarism. It is a type of plagiarism that involves copy and pasting of materials from different sources and modifying it in your own words without giving a proper credit to the respective authors. Global plagiarism. It is a type of plagiarism that involves copying the whole content of the material and giving credit to yourself and not to the original author. What are the consequences of practicing plagiarism? Number 1, drop out of academic and workplaces such as school, universities, etc. You will be fined or thrown to jail by the court. Number 3, negative comments and remarks on your report card, this will make it difficult for you to get a job or enter a school or university. Fun fact, Beatles member George Harrison was once fined and had to pay $1,599,987 because he was plagiarizing a song from another songwriter and he did not give any credit. How to avoid plagiarism? Number 1, always keep track of the sources that you use. Number 2, quote and paraphrase. Make sure that you include a double quotation mark when quoting and add a citation at the end of it. For paraphrasing, you need to modify it in your own ideas and words and then add a citation at the end of it. Number 3, use a plagiarism checker to check whether your work is free from plagiarism.
The APA citation. Now that you know what plagiarism is, and to avoid it, here is the APA citation guide you need to know. Now, APA stands for American Psychological Association. This is a form of writing a research paper wherein it is used mainly in the social sciences like psychology, anthropology, sociology, as well as education and other fields. The title is given to the bibliography page using the APA style, which is the references. Now, if you take a look at the last page of your book where the bibliography locates or the references, that is what we are referring to as the APA citation. An example written in the book, Murray, D.M, 2005, Right to Learn, 8th edition, Boston, Massachusetts, Thomson Wadsworth. Murray is the last name of the author. D.M is its initials. The year 2005 is the year that the author published the article. Right to Learn is the title source. The 8th edition, Boston, Massachusetts, is the location of the publisher. And finally, Thomson Wadsworth is the publisher, right here. So an APA citation is composed of mainly, number 1, the author's surname and initials. Number 2, date published. Number 3, the title source. Number 4, location of publisher. And number 5, the publisher's name. And if the source is coming from online, you should include the URL found in it. Now here are the next examples, shall we? Letter B, we have an article from a magazine which indicated the same thing, except it adds the pages in the end. An example, Bremer I, 2015, June 1, what does America stand for? Time, pages 16 to 21. Now that is an example for an APA citation guide in a magazine. Letter C, article in a newspaper. Letter D, article from an online periodical wherein at the end it adds the URL from the online source. Now in this case, you are aware of plagiarism, and to avoid that, I have shown you how to write an APA citation guide. I hope you remember the 5 main things. Advantages and disadvantages of writing a research paper. Let's start off with the advantages. Number 1, you are building new knowledge. Actually, this is the main purpose of doing a research paper. Much academic research is a self-designed learning experience that not only produces new knowledge but also teaches the student to use the various tools of research, such as procedures, experiences, and other instruments of inquiry. Number 2, it is beneficial to the community. Why so? Take note that a research paper shouldn't be focused on your extent, but rather it can solve the issue or the problem that the community is facing. Next, we have the disadvantages. The first disadvantage, it may lack breadth. Gathering very detailed information means being unable to gather data from a very large number of people or in groups. Number 2, it may be emotionally taxing. And number 3, documenting observations may be more challenging than with other methods. Ba-da-bam! And now you've reached the lesson recap. Phew! How many minutes was that? To summarize everything, let's look back on our 5 steps. Step number 1 is planning your research. Like Ibrahim said, it is important to try something new that piques your interest by the means of going through your comfort zone and for what your curiosity leads you. Just remember that upon planning, make sure to pick a topic that is convenient, interesting, and familiar. Step number 2, finding primary sources, which is the first-hand information. You can find primary sources through observations and interviews. Why is it advisable? Because primary sources are raw information and more credible as evidence. Step number 3, finding sources in the library. Now, this is what we call secondary sources, wherein it is found on books, encyclopedia, which is explained by Laila, and a lot more. For a good research, uses primary and secondary sources. Step number 4 is working on your bibliography. As you go along your research, try to take down every references that you will use. Of course, to avoid plagiarism, which was explained by Giorgio earlier. By the means of citing information, how will you do that? We should follow the APA citation. Remember its components? Never forget that. And finally, we differentiated the paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting. Remember, paraphrasing is rewriting all of the information and explaining it into your own words, while summarizing is creating a shorter outline of the text. And finally, quoting is the acknowledgement of any idea. To end this with a quote, research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has thought. A quotation by Albert St. Georgi. All for our topic for today. We are the Group 5 and thank you for listening. I hope you remember everything. Bye!
There you go, mga students. You have heard the different point of views of the reporters. And if you want to share your thoughts and opinions too, please comment down and don't forget to click the notification bell in order for you to be updated if I have new videos. And don't forget to subscribe because as I usually say, subscribe now, laugh and learn later. Once again, ito na naman inyong gurong vlogger ng Kuwait, guro sa umaga, YouTuber, and live streamer paggabi. Telling you, God bless you all and always keep safe. Bye-bye!